All right, we are back with an all new Keep It. I'm Ira Madison III.
And that's just not important right now because I'm Louis Fertel and we have with us a reality TV goddess.
All right.
Ma'am.
Parvati?
Ma'am.
Nope.
Sandra.
Parvati's here?
Kind of.
Yeah, sure. The Parvati of Crooked Media is here.
It's okay.
Wow.
You said it, not us. We can disagree later, Ira. It's Jon Lovett.
Hi.
Who does podcasts here.
You bet.
But also
Was
on the show Survivor.
I was.
And you were mysteriously, lovingly, I would say, eliminated first. Mm-hmm. And you got to watch it live with a bunch of gay people at High Tops
That's
in
right.
the East Side,
That's
which was
right.
a pleasure to see. Mm-hmm. But man, what a journey. And you've already talked about it some, but now we're going to get nasty about it.
Okay, let's do it.
First of all, let's just talk about how surprised were you to get eliminated? How surprised?
Oh, so I was not surprised at all.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. It wasn't surprising. What actually was very hard was in the hours leading up to it was trying to figure out how to get out of what I felt like was an unstoppable situation because I think part of why I was a little bit nervous, more than nervous. I was dreading a bit what it was going to be like once it aired, in part because I had no idea how I'd be presented. And I had no idea if how it felt to be in it is what it would look like when it was on screen. But it is. And basically, somebody had a bit of a meltdown.
He sure did.
And
One of the most memorable. I'm not a Survivor aficionado, but that has to be one of the craziest meltdowns in the history of the show, especially for episode 1.
And I had thought about what it would be like for someone on my tribe to have a meltdown. And I thought about what it would be like for someone to turn on me. I didn't see them happening at the exact same moment. And it really created a challenge. So in the new era of Survivor, there's something called a shot in the dark. And what a shot in the dark is every person basically has a roll of the dice. If you think you're on the chopping block, if you think you're going to be eliminated, you can roll this dice and you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting to stay. Everybody has it. And you lose your vote. But that 1 in 6 chance means that other people don't want you to know if the vote is on you, right? It used to be that there were votes in Survivor where they would just say, Louis, I'm really sorry, but we're voting for you. Ira and I talked about it, and you're done. If you didn't have an idol, that was it. You were done. They don't do that anymore. It makes it more interesting to watch. But what I hadn't really anticipated was what happens when a bunch of people decide that because someone had this implosion, they're really not a threat anymore. So they're going to tell you that because of the implosion, they're voting for that person. But really, they're voting for you because you're a little bit more dangerous. How do you persuade someone to vote for the person they're telling you they're going to vote for?
Right.
So everyone is telling me that the vote is on Andy. And I just, gut feeling in that moment, just didn't believe it. So I spent a while trying to figure out how do you make that true? That felt more and more impossible. So you're trying to quickly figure out some other path, some other vote. If Andy hadn't had that meltdown, I think the vote probably goes a completely different direction. But because it did, I really didn't have a lot of options. And so I went into Tribal basically feeling like I had a 1 in 6 chance with the shot in the dark. I probably had about a 1 in 6 chance with the vote. I decided to go with my vote because if I had persuaded people to come along with me, I would have voted myself out by using the shot in the dark.
Right.
And so I really was thinking right before the vote, like, do I just dump my bag out, take out my shot in the dark, and play it in front of everybody, which would have been really funny. But I decided not to because I really did think there was a chance that I had gotten enough people to vote with me. In the end, I didn't, which is why I wasn't really surprised. But it was sort of the opposite of a blindside, I'd say.
Shot in the dark, great Peter Sellers picture. Second of all, no, I mean, it was fascinating to watch this one episode, but also I had just thought in general, I was like, how will Jon Lovett do on this show? And I will say every option to me seemed available. I never thought you were like definitely counted out or whatever, other than it's the gift of so many Survivor players that play again and again that they just, for whatever reason, do not seem devious or calculating. And I just think when you're a podcaster and you have to think on your feet all the time, there's a general deviousness seeming quality about you, you know?
Yeah, and I think probably like in fair, like, I think there probably were moments, especially in the hours leading, like people have asked like, oh, well, why didn't you try this or why didn't you try that? Like I tried a bunch of different things that you don't see, which obviously they're not, like the edit is completely fair. I was trying a bunch of different things in the run up to the vote, and in the end, those are things people could use against you because, you're trying to throw the vote somewhere else. Really, like the way the tribe ended up breaking down, I had really had a good connection with Annika in the first 24 hours. By happenstance, we didn't really talk much. It ended up just naturally being Sierra and Sam, Rachel and Annika, me and Andy. Had Andy not fallen apart the way he did, I think there was a way for us to pull in Annika and Rachel. But because of what happened and because Rachel had already, I think, been a bit suspicious of Andy, it just made it very difficult. I just didn't have a lot of room to maneuver. And they show part of the conversation, but I really did sit for 15 or 20 minutes speaking, just talking out loud to the camera. I could try this, I could try that, I could do this, I could do that. I could try to get Sam and Andy to vote with me on Annika, try to pull Sierra in. I could try to go back to Rachel and Annika to vote for Sierra. All of these things were contemplated. I was really trying to work every piece of it. And because it was so early, everybody's just looking for something they can count on, right?
Yes.
None of us really know each other that well. None of us have been through a vote. None of us really know who they can trust. And I think the throwing my name out there, it just became this this sort of snowball rolling down the hill. And I just couldn't stop it.
Yeah, it stops the conversation. It's like, all right, we've made a decision. It's over. Ira, what did you think of this episode and moment in television history?
Oh, yes, the Survivor watcher. Lovett. Question for you, actually, as a person who loves Survivor and a person who's seen how this new era has sort of shaken out for people, do you sort of think that for people going into a new tribe, especially the way, you got attached to Andy, and so it was sort of like, well, let's get rid of him. And then part of it was also, I saw at the beginning of the episode, you sort of felt a little bit on the outs with them because you were like, well, I'm older than them. They're talking about Vine. I missed Vine. You're trying to connect with them through TikTok. Do you think it's more beneficial when you jump in to maybe just sort of try and lay a groundwork immediately with a lot of different people than try to latch onto one person? Because there was the one weird moment, and maybe this is just the edit, but I remember when you did walk off with Andy, there was the comment oh, they're walking off together. So I feel like, are you immediately seen as a duo if you walk somewhere with someone?
So that must have been such a flash of a moment. I truly don't. Did we walk off maybe for a second to get, but everybody was breaking, very rarely did the six not stay as a six or not break up into quick twos of various pairings to quickly get things. What is also I had what you don't see, right, are the moments where I had a similar conversation with Annika or had a moment with Sierra or had a moment with Rachel. Didn't really think I had more than a moment or two with Sam, but I did have those moments. So it is sort of condensing the story. I think had the challenge not gone the way it did, I think probably Annika and I would have had more time, and that would have played out a bit differently. It all just happened very fast. That was very, very condensed. I don't. In the end, I've thought about this, and I really you could. The social dynamics are what they are. You kind of can go back and look, say, were there dynamics here at play that maybe led to this? And maybe they did. But the reality is you don't need any of the social pieces to strategically figure out why what happened, right?
Of course.
And so are there social layers to it? Absolutely. But I really do think it was a strategic decision. Andy had kind of exposed himself to all the tribes as being somebody unreliable and ultimately weak in kind of as a player and kind of a little bit off. And so he became somebody kind of, he rendered himself a bit harmless. I decided going into it, I could try to hide or I could just be myself, thinking that basically if you're spending time with me, I'm going to come across as myself. I'm not going to be able to hide that I'm just not gonna be able to not make jokes. I'm gonna be myself. It's gonna come. And I thought oh, what am I gonna do? Pretend to be somebody else or not do what I would do in having a normal conversation. I thought that I would come across even weirder if I tried something like that. And so I think there was just no way for me not to seem as a threat. There are conversations that you don't see where I basically tried to convey to members of the tribe that like, hey, like, I want to go far with you. Like, I want to be someone that helps you go far in the game. Like I want to help you. I want to be somebody as a sounding board to think strategically through the game. And I think people were open to that. It wasn't like that wasn't valid. It was just that in the moment there became a choice between me or Andy, and I would have made the same choice. Why on earth would you not keep Andy after what happened? That just made a lot of sense.
Do you think it's like now beneficial, I don't know, going into Survivor now to just sort of like, I don't know, almost have like sort of a meltdown or a weak moment on the show? I mean, we saw this with Banu, you know? I mean, do you think this is a moment where now players going into the show now are sort of, with all of the twists and turns, they're not playing like they used to, and now it's sort of like, we want to sort of keep a weaker person around, so are people going to start trying to, I don't know, play themselves as weak?
I don't know. I really don't know how strategically you think about, like, I don't know how you strategically think about somebody who, I think what was so difficult about it is that, like, I get further in the game, people will try anything to stay and just try to get to the next vote. But what it really felt like in the moment was somebody basically giving up a chance to win. Just like basically saying, it is day 3. It is literally the first challenge, immunity challenge. And you're basically saying, I can't win this game anymore, but God, I want to stay. Right?
That's fair.
And so what happens if a bunch of people do that, or that becomes something people try, or becomes kind of a move? I don't know, because moves, the validity of a move and whether it makes it possible or impossible for you to win is determined by the people watching it unfold. And if somebody were to say, I strategically pretended to be weak to get further in the game, like, is that valuable? Does that people believe that that's a worthy move? It really is like almost like it's about the evolving culture of Survivor.
He was so erratically behaved from the jump, though, like from Jeff's initial saying hi to him, that I kind of want him to be a like Kaiser Soze verbal Kint situation. Like, It was so fast how much you were like, this is bad news, you know?
Yeah.
His hi Jeff, even in the middle of his breakdown, was so funny to me. And I don't know. I just think that I'm not one of those morality players, like, or like who deserves like to win in like Big Brother or like Survivor. Like, I think like play whatever game you need to play, like however you get there. It's why I love fucking Angela on Big Brother, this psycho.
Yeah,
this
she is still
right
there.
now.
Yes,
but I don't know. There is just something about old school Survivor where I feel like if you were at that final tribal council, and that's where I felt bad for you. Actually, did feel bad for Jon Lovett. I felt like old school Survivor, you would have been able to sit there at tribal and say, he's basically giving up. I want to play this game. And the rest of the tribe would have voted him out because at least in earlier Survivor, it was about we're all here to play a game, and if someone is giving up, essentially, they don't want them to partake in the game anymore.
Yeah, and I it's hard to remember, but like I do think part of the challenge too is like there was a little bit of that conversation in tribal council, right? Like that's what you're saying. That's like when Jeff goes to me and I say like when there seems to be a natural target, who's the unnatural target? That was basically after a bunch of people are talking about why Andy's giving up. Or Andy's not, he didn't really give up. His sort of whatever meltdown or sort of breakdown was so damaging to the tribe and how you couldn't. There was just a bunch of conversations making all of those arguments, but because of Shot in the Dark, you were like, well, that means it's not going to be him. So that means the vote is still on me. But because of the conversations I'd had with Sam and with Andy, so here was what's happening. And here's another reason why I didn't play the Shot in the Dark. Going into tribal, if the vote had shifted to one of the other targets that wasn't me and that wasn't Andy, everyone you would have expected everyone to pretend the vote was still on Andy. That's what Sam would have done. That's what Andy would have done. That's what would have happened. And so it was really hard to know in the moment, did the vote shift off of me or is it still on me? And I just didn't know. There was no way to know for sure.
I was touched to hear that you learned most about the game, you said, in the Ponderosa part of the show where you're eliminated and then the other eliminated contestants come in one by one. What did you glean from that?
So here's what's really interesting about it is when you get eliminated, look, imagine you both open your calendar and put in March of next year, there's going to be a night where everybody thinks I'm dumb. You know, like that's a weird thing to know that's coming. And so from the moment you're eliminated, maybe you're a bit in shock, maybe you're disappointed or angry or whatever set of emotions you have, but you haven't really yet had the time to build the story you want to tell about what happened. Like, as we're talking about this right now, I am telling a story. It is, I believe, probably as accurate a story as I can convince myself is the truth while protecting my ego in ways subtle and less subtle.
Very Joan Didion, yes.
But when someone's eliminated, for that first couple of hours, they're not able to do that yet. They're kind of casting about for what happened, what went wrong, who hurt them, who lied to them, who tricked them, who supported them, who backed them, all this stuff. And so they come into Ponderosa and they just talk for like 2 hours. And you just get this sense of, before they've had a chance to protect themselves, of what really happened. And whether they mean to or not, you see like, oh, I see what happened, right? I kind of see where they went wrong. Even if you don't point it out, you're like, oh, that sounds like you're describing somebody who was annoyed by you, or it sounds like you alienated yourself, whatever it may be. And person after person comes down and does this. And I just sort of decided, like, I chose to go on Survivor. It couldn't be more extracurricular, couldn't have been more of a decision. So I'm not going to be negative or mad in this time. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity. I'm going to enjoy the fact that I am in Fiji, and I'm going to learn what people have to say about what it was like for them to play this game. And that was really fascinating. It was really fascinating.
And of course, you may end up being on The Amazing Race with, Ira? I have no idea.
Oh, I think we'd kill each other. No. It's Traitors next.
Oh, of course. That's exactly what you should do. The Emmy-winning Traitors.
The Emmy award-winning Traitors.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you were a really good storyteller. I think Jeff Probst said that about you. And I loved your Rob Has a Podcast episode.
Oh,
and
thank
I think
you.
that you are, I think that maybe that's honestly coming from what you learned from the people coming into Ponderosa, but you're very smart about the game. You had very great, confessionals, and, it's sad that you didn't get further, but,
Thank you for saying that. I'm sure there are places, I know that there are ways I could have played differently and stayed in, but...
Been a comp beast?
Been a what?
Been a comp beast?
What's a comp beast?
Like a competition beast.
Great at competitions, yeah.
Sure.
Because they were kind of like, we won't win competitions without you, with him in the game.
Yeah, I think that was a way of... That was a face-saving way to describe keeping the person who had the meltdown.
Right,
I'm not.
yes.
This was not about who could lift a fucking thing. But I do think that, like, because of the way it went down, like, I don't feel regret about it because, like, I don't feel like I fucked up my experience. I feel like I didn't get the full experience. So I'm more disappointed than I am embarrassed. And what's been really tough, truly the hardest part about it has not been. I don't mind how they edited. I just I've trusted the edit and I felt validated by that. It's that people were so excited that I was on it. It's the opportunity cost. It's the episodes that didn't happen. It was the fun we didn't get to have. That's the part that really bums me out. It's people being like, oh, I was so excited that you were on the show and I was so bummed that you got out first. Like, that reaction was more than I expected. I expected people to be meaner, frankly. And it just makes me like, oh, wow, like this was like the reason I went on was not wrong. Like, it would have been such a good fucking time to watch this unfold. So that's the part that makes me bummed, but I don't feel bad about anything that unfolded.
Again, I don't know what your ambitions are in this arena, but I have the feeling your reality TV days are not over. So, I mean, like,
everybody
think you will
needs a
get
hobby.
That. Yes, right.
Yeah.
I want to see Alan Cumming tangle with you, like play the bagpipes in your face.
Hell yeah.
Wow. I feel so bad, that Travis and I said, first boot, definitely. And it turned out to be true.
All right, fuck you, Ira. Bye, everybody. So fun. Love, keep it.
All right, well, the tribe has spoken.
Loudly.
Once again.
Thank
loudly.
God. Yes.
Loudly. So let's get back to our real show. Once again, I'm Ira Madison III.
I think I'm still Louis Fertel after all that, yes.
Yeah. And that was our guest for the episode, by the way. So I hope you had fun with him.
If you want to hear him talk at any other time, I have no idea how you can do that. Maybe try online.
Honestly, I would do The Amazing Race with Lovett.
That literally among all competitions on television, The Amazing Race is what I would be the worst at. I am not put on this earth.
Why so?
I have no sense of lateral spatial direction. And I don't trust people who do. Why do people have a natural understanding of how to get around Florence if they've not been there before? You're like a bat or something. What's wrong with you?
But no, I think I would have more fun playing against him on Traitors.
That's fun. Also, Traitors is a game where, well, like Big Brother, frankly, people are obsessed with what makes a good player, and they're like, this person secretly was great, and it really comes down to some bullshit luck, honestly.
It does.
I think, and like you say something amazing one minute, and then the next minute they're all turning on you. You think you can't prescribe a rubric of what actually makes a success on these shows. So, someone like Jon Lovett shouldn't feel so bad about going home first on Survivor. There's plenty of other reasons you should feel bad.
I feel a little bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
He said there's
but
some
also,
regret.
I'm sorry. If I'm on Survivor and Jeff Probst is handing me a yellow bandana, I'm turning the other way.
You should be able to shop
for them. That tribe is cursed.
Yeah, that's
that tribe
true.
is cursed.
I have to say, I don't live for the physical challenges on Survivor. It feels like
really.
Yeah, I mean, like on Big Brother, they do updates of old games, and there's a lot of humor to them. So, like, there's a stupid gimmick or whatever that always makes it a little bit funnier than the last time you saw it. Whereas on Survivor, it's still the same adult Discovery Zone obstacle course every time. We're still dragging a barrel out of the sea.
I kind of think that, I love Australian Survivor, as we know, which the thing about that game is it's so much more brutal. And I really love those games. Sometimes I am a person who's like, okay, I don't really care about the physical competitions, but Australian Survivor, like, they are sort of like more strenuous and they're more fun and sort of innovative. And I think that like they need to spruce up the games a bit for US.
That's my
Speaking
note.
of Australian Survivor, we're getting 2 new seasons next season. They're doing Brains versus Brawn again, but they're also doing Australia versus the World. And we got a sneak peek of some of the cast members for next season. And they're bringing back Australian faves like King George and Shawnee and Kirby from last season. But we will also be seeing Replay again. We will also be seeing Tony Vlachos. And we will also be seeing Parvati play.
Okay, at this point, Parvati, amount of hours logged on TV, it's like she's up there with like Carol Burnett and Dick Van Dyke. Like it's like so deep and long. And Sri, of course, who won the first season of The Traitors, in one of the most, I'm not going to call it shocking, fabulous wins on a reality show I've ever seen.
That was a better win for me because, I feel like those bitches are still pressed that she won.
Also, it's just
they're angry.
I get that it's probably the game is extremely personal when you play it or whatever, and so things feel really heated and intense and directly personal. But they were ridiculous. I can't imagine not taking a step back and thinking, okay, ultimately we are at a weird mansion in Europe. Broadway's Alan Cumming is screaming orders at us. Take yourself
East Villages.
Seriously. Yeah,
Alan Cumming.
Yes. Yeah, Club Cummings, Alan Cumming. What's going on in this episode besides all that?
Besides all that, there's a lot going on this week.
No shit.
Unfortunately. Or fortunately? I don't know. My head's spinning kind of from all of the content. There is a lot going on with Chappell Roan again.
We'll get into her, yes.
We'll get into her. There is trouble in the Rhythm Nation.
Maybe the most trouble yet. We need extra choreography on this. Paula, get back in here.
When we tell you later about what Janet said, you might think she's crazy, but she's serious.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
But also, Katy Perry has a new album out, or does she? Because we'll never speak of it again, it seems like. It's called 143. And then we'll talk a bit about the new movie The Substance, which I am happy to say seems to be the main movie everybody is talking about, and I did not anticipate that for the career of Demi Moore at this. By the way, Demi Moore, as she says, during the introduction to the movie at AMC theaters. Demi Moore. Let's make sure we all get that right. Demi Moore.
Very Demi Moore. Very mindful. Which, of course, Jen Fallon is the one who did that sketch with her.
Oh yeah, that does. Yeah, that should have been us over in Kimmel. She lives in L.A. Come on, traitor. Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like you're a little step above that in brow.
I feel
Not too highbrow. You're not too highbrow over at Kimmel, but I feel like Jimmy Fallon is more of the specific TikTok-y memes. Like you're not doing TikTok dances.
No, he's like opening Play-Doh and throwing it out at the celebrities and stuff. You know? I say that affectionately. It's fun.